One king, one vision, and the bold move that reshaped England's economy. The recoinage of 1279 wasn't just about money, it was about control, trust, and the power of a coin to change a kingdom. Imagine a kingdom where the only coin available to most people is a single silver penny, where merchants have to cut that penny into halves and quarters just to sell a loaf of bread or a mug of ale, where coins are so clipped and worn that they barely hold any silver at all. Well, this was England in the late 13th century. But in 1279, King Edward I decided to change that, and what followed was one of the most ambitious and far-reaching monetary reforms in English history, and it was called the Great Recoinage. It wasn't just about money, it was about power, control, and reshaping the kingdom in the king's image. To understand the recoinage, we have to go back a few decades. For most of the early medieval period, England's economy ran entirely on a single coin, the silver penny. It was simple and effective when the economy was smaller. But by the 1200s, things were changing and towns were growing, markets were expanding, and trade was stretching from England's ports all the way to France, Flanders, and even Italy. And yet, people still had only that single silver penny to work with. There were no smaller denominations, no coins for everyday purchases, and if you wanted to buy something worth less than a penny, you cut your coin, literally, into halves and quarters if it wasn't already done so by the mint. And this was risky and messy, but worse than that, it invited abuse. Over time, the quality of the coinage degraded, coins were clipped, which means their edges were shaved to steal the silver, and then forgers made counterfeits. Some coins were so thin or worn down that they barely held any value at all. Merchants started to reject older coins. Confidence in the currency began to crumble, and when people stopped trusting their money, economies slowed down. England was headed towards a currency crisis, and Edward I knew it. Edward wasn't just a warrior king, he was a planner, a reformer, and he understood that the strength of the realm depended on more than just swords and castles. It depended on the coin, the lifeblood of the economy. So in 1279, he launched a kingdom-wide recoinage. His goal? To wipe out the corrupted currency, reintroduce trust, and put the royal stamp firmly and literally on every transaction in the land. The silver penny remained the cornerstone, but its design was completely transformed. For the first time, English coins carried a lifelike portrait of the king, Edward crowned and facing forward, a powerful, unmistakable symbol of royal authority. But Edward didn't stop with the penny. Two new coins were introduced, the halfpenny and the farthing, worth half a penny and quarter of a penny respectively, and these were revolutionary. Now people could buy everyday items without mutilating their money. The farthing made life easier for the poor. The halfpenny helped grease the wheels for local trade. Halfpennies, however, were tried and tested under Henry III, but it didn't take off. Each new coin carried not just the king's face, but his name and title, Edward, King of England and Lord of Ireland. Coins also featured a long cross design on the reverse, and it helped deter clipping. Mint marks revealed where each coin was struck from major cities like London, Canterbury, York, Durham. These details served a practical purpose, but they also communicated something deeper, that the coinage was part of a new central system overseen by the crown. In short, Edward was putting his face, his name, and his authority in the hands and purses of every subject in his realm. To carry this out, the crown expanded and reorganised the minting process. The main mint was in the Tower of London, but regional mints sprang into action too. Each was staffed by skilled craftsmen called moneyers, experts in weighing, shaping, and striking silver. Strict quality control was imposed. Coins had to be the correct weight, with precise silver content, and if they weren't, heads would roll, sometimes literally. Supervision came from the officials known as the Wardens of the Mint, along with the Exchequer, who was at the financial heart of the English government. The recoinage had a dramatic impact. Trade became smoother, markets ran more efficiently, foreign merchants, impressed by high quality of the English coins, were more willing to deal in English towns and ports. The crown also profited handsomely. The government earned a margin on each coin produced, a margin that helped fund Edward's expensive military campaigns in Wales and later Scotland. But not all effects were positive. The crackdown on forgery and clipping led to widespread arrests, and many of the accused were Jews. At the time, Jews were heavily involved in the money lending, a role they were forced into by restrictions on other professions. This made them vulnerable scapegoats. In 1278, a year before the recoinage, Hundreds of Jews were arrested for alleged coin clipping, and around 300 were executed. Just over a decade later, in 1290, Edward would go further, issuing the Edict of Expulsion, driving all Jews out of England, and it was a decision shaped partly by prejudice and partly by economic convenience. So what did the 1279 recoinage leave behind? It standardised English currency, laying the groundwork for a more modern economy. It introduced a more lifelike portrait of the king for the first time in English history. It gave ordinary people better tools for everyday life. It demonstrated the power and the monetary policy, not just as an economic tool, but as a symbol of power and control. And it revealed how something as simple as a coin could affect everything, from local trade to royal wars, from trust in the marketplace to the very shape of a society. The recoinage of 1279 was more than a facelift for England's money. It was a bold statement by a king who understood that true power doesn't ride on horseback or swing a sword, it jingles in the pockets of his people. And with every new coin that bore his face and name, Edward I didn't just fix an economy, he minted a legacy. So there we have it. I hope you've enjoyed today's video on the recoinage of Edward I in 1279. Thank you so much to Alex Taylor from Fortuna Numismatics for sending me the coins to list and to post, and all coins from the videos can be found in the description below via his website or his eBay store, where you can get your hands on them and many more. Thank you, Alex, for your continued support on the channel and for supporting me in making these videos and making every day a school day. So thank you all for watching, and as always, keep collecting.